You guys, I have seen some bad habits in starting private practices. I have now mentored almost 100 psych NPs starting private practices all over the US, and I have seen some people with some really bad habits that cause some really major issues down the line. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to spot those bad habits, treat those bad habits, and prevent them. Most of this is going to be about awareness, but of course, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks as always. If you've stumbled upon my page and you don't know me, my name is Alicia. Welcome. I am a psych NP and I own my own private practice, and I teach other psych NPs how to find freedom and balance in their lives by starting their own private practices as well. Let's jump into it. So let's start with how to spot a few bad habits. So I'm going to say one of the absolute worst and most destructive things I have seen is people who are in extreme burnout and start a private practice in a panic as an attempt to cure that burnout. You need to treat that burnout. Private practice is not the solution, because those bad habits that caused you, look, it's not your fault that you're burnt out. Let's start with that. But there are some things that could have led to it and some things that can exacerbate it. And those things might follow you. So you have to be aware and treat them first out. I'm going to tell you the trajectory that burnout can take you into a private practice. Okay, so picture this. You're incredibly burnt out. You want to start your private practice. You go ahead and do it. And then you start to come to a place where you need to make choices. And so these choices are coming from a burnt out place and a panic mode. So you hate your job, you want to get out of it, you want to quit your job ASAP, but you need money to live. Understandably so. But this can lead to you accepting insurance when maybe your dream is to start a cash practice. So starting out with a structure that you don't actually want, but you feel like you have to do. You should never feel like you have to do anything in your own private practice. It's like, don't insult me in my own house kind of thing. You might take insurance when you don't want to, or take cash when you don't want to, or have like a pay structure that you don't actually want or believe in. You might take patients that are not a good fit, but you feel like you have to take that patient because you need money. You should never feel like you have to take a patient because you need money. You might slide your boundaries and like see a patient late at night or on a weekend when you don't actually want to work nights or weekends. So you slide your boundaries and you work when you don't actually want to work. That's what being incredibly burnt out can lead to. It can lead to these choices where you then set up a private practice that you don't actually like. Another bad habit in private practice can look like accepting things that made you burnt out in the first place at your past job. And I'm not saying that burnout is your fault by any means, but there's some things, that you can look at and see, how did I contribute to that? And what was not my fault? And so you take the things that you had some control over and work with them. And that could be accepting being overworked and accepting being underpaid. And that can follow you into private practice if you're not careful. What are some of the things that can look like? So one is being afraid of charging your worth. So setting very low cash rates, or anytime someone asks for a sliding scale, sliding your rates really low. And sometimes people will hide behind saying that they just really care about the patient or they want to be accessible, but sometimes they're hiding behind that, and the reality is that they're afraid to charge their worth. And it's important that we charge our worth for our community of other NPs, that we just don't accept really low pay for what we've worked incredibly hard to do and have medical loans for, etc. But also it's important because I feel like it can be confusing when you are really cheap. Like, patients may wonder, like, why? Like, for example, think about any service that you might get, and if it's way cheaper than all the other people, you're like, why? Like, what's wrong? So like, charging your worth to an extent is expected, you know? And you can make a couple of sliding scale spots, like, I'm not saying that that's not possible. Like, anyone who knows my business knows that I have like a sliding scale policy, and that is something that I allow in my business, but I didn't do that out of fear of charging my worth. I was advised by my mentor, one of my mentors, not to slide my fee or do sliding scale until I own my business for 6 months, because you don't want to do it out of fear. You also don't want to do it too early, because you have a lot of fees to pay for your startup. Like, starting a business is expensive, and it adds up, and you have to recuperate those startup costs. Another thing of like accepting behavior that may not have been good in the past might be answering emails really late, allowing patients to text you at all hours of the night, just like not having really good boundaries. Another thing could be like seeing patients whenever they want. Patients, if you say you're not accepting patients and patients are like saying, please, please, please see me, and then you're like overbooking yourself, that's going to put you in a place where you're overworked and underpaid again in your own practice. And this is something that a lot of people start their practice to avoid this. So that's all awareness and noticing the bad habits. So how do you fix it, and how do you prevent it? So let's talk about one preventative tactic, and that is, if you feel really burnt out at your job and it's going to make you make bad decisions in your private practice where you're just like panicked and you're just like, oh my God, I have to get out of the situation, I recommend that you quit when your burnout is around a 5 out of 10 rather than a 10 out of 10. I really, really think that you should consider quitting that job and getting a different job and then starting your practice. I actually did that. I quit my full-time job and took a part-time job that paid more hourly, actually. So I didn't take a 50% pay cut. It was more like a 20 or 30% pay cut. But I was working half the hours, which was cool. But I needed some time to start my practice. And so I started another job that was going to work with starting my practice, that was flexible with me starting my practice, that was, like, there was a lot of really, really wonderful things about that job. And so quit early is one of my advice. Don't just say, oh my God, I'm just gonna like quit this and start my practice. Maybe you need another job in between there. Another prevention strategy is going to be to slowly create your optimal work situation. So with this, I recommend that you slowly take on patients. You slowly talk about your fee to patients. You slowly work out your systems. I really think that not trying to get as many patients in the door as possible is in the beginning, I think, is a good thing. I think if you go slow and tweak your systems slowly, I think it's really going to help you get your systems to be good and to build the practice of your dreams slowly and mindfully. I really think that can be helpful. I know there's this urge to just like get anybody in the door, but like, talk to your ideal patients, do those free consults. Anyone that calls you, you don't have to take every single person that calls you. Be really mindful and thoughtful, and take it slow so that each decision is in line with the work situation that you want to create and is authentically you and is going to help you keep your peace. A tip on how to kind of constantly work on things. This isn't really this can be a prevention strategy, but it's just like an ongoing strategy. And that is work on your anxiety around saying no. A lot of healthcare providers have a hard time saying no because they weren't allowed to say no in other jobs. They just had to see whatever patient their boss threw at them. Practice saying no. If you don't feel like the patient is a good fit for you, practice what you're going to say. You might say that my specialties don't align with what you're looking for at this time. If a patient asks for a discount, practice saying no. Practice saying no and get good at asserting your boundaries. If you're not good at asserting your boundaries, it's gonna bleed into your private practice and cause you to start to agree to things that you don't want to agree to. This might be something that you may be working on in your personal life. This may be something to even work out in therapy. Like saying no and asserting your boundaries. That's a life skill. Some psych NPs that are listening to this, you might already be good at this, but a lot of us aren't because we weren't allowed to. And that can be for a number of reasons. That can be because a lot of us are minority women, and we're just told what we're supposed to do, right? A lot of us worked in large healthcare systems where it was like, you're going to treat that patient, you don't get to say no. There's just a million, I could go on and on and on. There's a million reasons why this might be hard and why maybe you haven't gotten that practice in the past. And finally, just a tip for ongoing entrepreneurial, being a better and better entrepreneur. Now that I've been an entrepreneur for some time, I'm just learning from other entrepreneurs, not even just in the healthcare space, so many spaces. And a lot of them are into personal development. And I think that's because when you open a business, the world is your oyster. You're creating your job. You can do exactly what you want to do. And so some of your bad habits are going to bleed into that. And some of your bad habits are going to bleed into how you create your business. And so I think that I really understand why a lot of entrepreneurs are into personal development, because you're going to have to work on yourself, and you're going to have to work on what you're okay with and not holding yourself back, and what you're not okay with. And, just like, it's amazing because you can do anything, but it's scary because you can do anything. And so that's my final tip, is continue on the personal development track, work on mindfulness, work on thinking about all the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis for your business, what you say yes to, what you say no to, plan out these things. And so I think that's really going to help you from some of these bad habits in private practice. And another thing that can really help you, that has helped me, I speak from a personal space, is investing in mentorship. Because you can see how your mentor conducts himself and what has made them successful, and you can build your business off of theirs, or change things that you see that they're doing because you want to do things differently. I just feel like having a mentor can fast track you to where you want to be, so you're not just kind of floating and being like, how do I do this? You can know when those decisions come up and what decisions have been made by your mentor. And so if you're interested, I have a beautiful group of people, of 80 plus nurse practitioners at this point, that are opening private practices all across the US. I have a step-by-step guide on how to start a private practice. There are videos, there's forum, there's live calls twice a month. But more importantly, you get lifetime access to a community that's going to support the lifetime of your business. And really, I think that's where this program shines. And so if you're interested, there's going to be information in the description on how to get started. You start by watching my masterclass and applying to my program, and we'll take it from there. I wish you the absolute best in your private practice journey, and I will see you in the next video. I feel like we should be playing that song in the background. Bad habits lead to late night sleeping alone. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. Hannah, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, sometimes I get crazy just filming this stuff all by myself. I got this cute pink little lippy. We're gonna do a lippy refresh here. This would be hilarious if I put this in the YouTube video. This is my bad habit. Making things hilarious all by myself. Maybe it's a good habit.